The dynasty's correction. He built on sand. She owned the beach. Welcome back, power players. Before we dive into this ultimate revenge story, hit the like button. If you believe old money always wins, and subscribe to the channel for weekly drama. The monument on the sand. The world doesn't turn just for money. It turns for power. Harrison Vance thought he had both. A self-made billionaire had just traded his quiet, elegant wife, Anya, for a world-famous supermodel. He was on top of the world, flaunting his new life in the $80 million beachfront mansion he'd built as his personal monument. But Harrison made a fatal mistake. He thought his wife's family was a thing of the past. He forgot that while millionaires build houses, dynasties build empires, and can tear them down just as easily. The air of the Hamptons was different. It wasn't just clean, salty air. It was, as Harrison Vance liked to boast, filtered by wealth. And his new home, a towering structure of glass, white marble, and reclaimed Brazilian teak, was the filter. He called it Vance Point, a 15,000-square-foot fortress jutting out over the dunes, challenging the very Atlantic it overlooked. It was a house built not for comfort, but for magazine covers, and tonight, it performed its function perfectly. The terrace was packed with a select elite of New York society. Tech billionaires clinked glasses with fashion editors. A U.S. senator laughed too loudly by the infinity pool. And at the center of it all, presiding over court, was Harrison. This isn't just a house, his voice boomed, a rehearsed baritone that rose above the lounge music. He wore a bespoke Brioni suit, unbuttoned, no tie. It's a declaration. A view like this isn't bought. It's earned. His wife, Anya Thorne, stood near the edge of the terrace, holding a glass of chilled Sancerre she hadn't touched. She watched him, not with the adoration he craved, but with the quiet, anthropological curiosity she usually reserved for the 17th century Flemish paintings she catalogued. Anya was a Thorne. The Thornes didn't make declarations. They were the declaration. They owned the banks that financed the buildings men like Harrison constructed. They owned the land beneath the museums. They were a dynasty. And Anya was their discreet, almost forgotten heiress. She wore a simple, sleeveless navy dress by the row. Her only jewelry was a thin platinum timepiece from her grandmother. She was, as Harrison often complained, aggressively subtle. Your husband is breathtakingly impressive. A voice slithered beside her. Anya turned. It was Serafina Bell. The 22-year-old face of Gucci, Balenciaga, and 1,000 magazine covers. She was 6 feet tall without heels, encased in a metallic gold dress that looked sprayed onto her skin. She was an event, a spectacle. Harrison is ambitious, Anya replied. Her voice soft. Ambitious. He's a hurricane. Serafina laughed, her eyes scanning the crowd. He wants everyone looking at him. And you? You just want to disappear, don't you? Anya felt a chill. I am not here to be looked at. I am here to support Harrison. How sweet. Serafina's smile was a white, perfectly carnivorous thing. But darling, in this world, if they don't look at you, you're invisible. And if you're invisible, she let the phrase hang, taking a long, slow drag from a forbidden cigarette. Her eyes weren't on Anya. They were on Harrison, who had just spotted her. He cut off his conversation mid-sentence, his politician's smile transforming into something more primal. He began moving through the crowd toward them, a shark sensing blood. Anya, darling, he said upon arrival, placing a possessive hand on the small of her back. But his eyes devoured Serafina. I see you've met the guest of honor. Serafina, you made it. Harrison, what a house, Serafina purred, touching his lapel. It's so large. I build things to last, he said, puffing out his chest. Do you? Serafina's gaze darted to Anya, then back to Harrison. Anya watched the exchange. It was so blatant, so lacking in subtlety. It was almost boring. This wasn't the discreet, old-world infidelity she had been raised to expect. This was a hostile takeover. "Harrison," Anya said, her voice cutting through their small bubble. "The Duchess of Sterling is leaving. You need to say goodbye." Harrison's face tightened. He hated being reminded of social subtleties. He hated for a split second that Anya was better at this than he was. "Right, of course." He nodded curtly at Serafina. "Don't go far." As he walked away, Serafina turned to Anya. "He's incredible. A real man. Not like those scrawny boys from your world. The ones who look like they've never seen the sun." "My world?" Anya asked. "Oh, come on, the Thorns, the dynasty," Serafina said with irreverent mockery. "All that dusty old money, all those rules. Don't you ever just want to scream, buy something tacky, live a little?" "My family values privacy," Anya said, finally taking a sip of her wine. "Privacy is just a word for people who are afraid of being famous," Serafina retorted. "Harrison isn't afraid. He's building an empire. I'm just here to be his empress." The words hung in the air. His empress. Not an empress. Anya looked at the 22-year-old, a girl who had mistaken fame for power and attention for respect. Then she looked at her husband, a man who had mistaken his millions for her family's billions. "Well," Anya said, setting down her glass, "the position is vacant." She walked away, leaving Serafina momentarily speechless. Anya moved through the party, a ghost in navy, navigating groups of people who were there to worship at Harrison Vance's altar. She knew with a certainty that settled like a stone in her stomach that her marriage was over. Harrison hadn't just built a house. He had built a monument to his own ego, and she knew better than anyone that monuments could be torn down. Interactive question. Serafina isn't holding back, is she? Do you think Anya should have confronted her earlier? Or is her discretion her greatest strength? The declaration of divorce. The party was a grotesque success. It was reviewed in Vogue US and, most importantly, to Harrison in Forbes. The headline was "The New King of the Hamptons." 2 weeks later, the scent of Victoria's Secret and Serafina's Frederic Malle perfume still clung to the master bedroom curtains when Harrison finally delivered the blow. He didn't do it with shame. He did it with pride. "Anya, we need to talk," he said, smoothing the knot of his Hermes tie in the reflection of the floor-to-ceiling glass wall overlooking the Atlantic. It was 7 in the morning. He was already dressed for war. Anya was in the adjacent, huge custom walk-in closet he had designed, lining up her shoes. She preferred her simple, Repetto ballet flats. He had tried, unsuccessfully, to put her in Christian Louboutin stilettos. "Oh, really?" she asked. Without looking up, she placed a pair of beige flats into their slot. "I'm not happy. I haven't been happy in a long time," he announced, as if reading a script. "You're a wonderful woman, Anya. Your class, your elegance. But I'm not that man anymore. I'm not quiet." "I've never known you to be quiet, Harrison," she said dryly. He ignored her. "I'm a builder. I'm a creator. I need passion. I need fire. I need someone who sees me, not just my bank account." This was the line that finally made her stop and turn. The absurdity was breathtaking. She is Anya Thorne, whose family trust fund could buy and sell Vance's holdings 10 times over without noticing the transaction fee. She was being accused of being a gold digger. "And you found that fire?" she asked. "Yes, with Serafina." He said her name with a flourish. "She's alive. She understands the drive. She wants to build this empire with me." "I see." Anya walked past him and sat on the edge of the bed. A vast custom platform Richard had boasted was earthquake-proof. She looked small against its imported suede headboard. "So I'm leaving you," he said. "I'm in love with her, and she's in love with me." And the house? Anya asked, her gaze drifting toward the ocean. Harrison's face hardened. This was the part he had rehearsed. This was the negotiation. The house is mine, Anya. I designed it. I built it. My name is on the company that owns the deed. It's a non-marital asset. My lawyers have been very clear about this. I'm not talking about the deed, Harrison. I'm talking about the declaration. It's my declaration, he snapped, his insecurity surfacing. And I'm not going to be bled dry by you. I know how this works. You, with your quiet, judgmental family, will try to take half. Well, it's not going to happen. He started pacing, his adrenaline pumping. I'll be generous, of course. I'm not a monster. I'll let you keep the city apartment. Anya had to stifle a laugh. The apartment was a 10-room masterpiece on Fifth Avenue that had been in her family since 1926. It was currently leased to the French consulate. The apartment she lived in with Harrison was a penthouse in the Upper East Side, also owned by her. Harrison, she said. Standing up, I don't want anything from you. He stopped pacing. What? I said I want nothing. Not your apartment, not your art, which frankly is terrible, and certainly not this. She gestured around the cold, cavernous bedroom. I want my clothing, my books, and my grandmother's writing desk. That is all. Harrison was thrown. This wasn't in the script. He was prepared for a fight, for tears, for screaming. He was not prepared for indifference. It enraged him. You can't be serious, he sputtered. What will you do? Where will you go? Back to your dusty old uncle? My dusty old uncle, as you call him, is Julius Thorne. And yes, I will be staying at the family brownstone on Madison Avenue until my own place is prepared. Your own place? What place? I've been paying for your life for 10 years, Anya, he shouted. This was his truth, the one he had constructed. He, the self-made man, had rescued her from a boring life of inherited privilege. Anya finally looked at him, and for the first time Harrison saw the thorns in her eyes. It wasn't fire. It was ice. Harrison, do you have any idea who I am? She asked, her voice dangerously low. You married a thorn. You were so blinded by the prestige of the name that you never bothered to look at the ledger. You think you have money? You have debt. You have leverage. You have a brand built on perception. My family. We have assets. We don't build houses on sand, Harrison. We own the sand. He was stunned into silence. Have you been tolerating me? He whispered, the insult landing like a physical blow. I have been amused by you, she corrected. But the amusement has run out. You've become a cliché. A midlife man leaving his wife for a model. It's so boring. She returned to the closet. He heard the metallic snap of suitcase latches. You can't talk to me like that, he roared, following her. I'm Harrison Vance. I built this. Yes, you did. She nodded, placing a stack of folded cashmere sweaters into a Goyard trunk. And you get to keep it. I'll ruin you, he threatened. But it sounded weak, childish. I'll tell Page 6 that you're a cold, frigid snob. You will tell Page 6 whatever your new publicist, the one Serafina recommends, tells you to say. It will be a conscious uncoupling, and you will spin it as if you are being incredibly generous to your separated wife. I know the game, Harrison. Frankly, I'm relieved I don't have to play it anymore. She snapped the trunk shut. A car, a discreet black S-Class Mercedes, not from Harrison's fleet of Rolls-Royces, was already crunching up the gravel drive. You'll regret this, he said, his voice cracking. She paused at the door, her trunks already being handled by a chauffeur who looked more like a security operative. No, Harrison, you will. She walked out of the $80 million mansion, not looking back. Harrison Vance stood alone in his glass cathedral, the silence of the house suddenly deafening. He had his mansion, his model, and his empire. He had never felt so small. Interactive question. The Thorns don't forgive. Do you think Julius is right in saying Harrison is aggressively subtle? What would you do in Harrison's situation? The negotiation for a writing desk. The divorce proceedings were surgically quick. Just as Anya had predicted, Harrison's team, led by the famously theatrical divorce attorney, Martin the Shark Klein, was prepared for a war of attrition. Martin, a man who wore diamond pinky rings and snakeskin boots, swaggered into the first and only meeting. Anya was represented by Mr. Douglas, a man in his late 70s who wore a perpetually disappointed expression and a suit that was probably older than Martin. Douglas's firm had handled the Thorne family affairs since the Great Depression. "Look, Douglas," Martin began, tossing a Mont Blanc pen onto the table. "Harrison is a very generous man. He's prepared to offer, let's call it, a golden parachute, a lump sum. Say $5 million. Plus, she keeps her jewelry, in exchange for a full NDA, and she waives all future claims to Vance properties, marital or otherwise." Mr. Douglas slowly put on his reading glasses. He looked at the paper Martin had slid across the table, as if it were something unpleasant he had found on his shoe. "Mr. Klein," Douglas said, his voice a dry whisper. "My client, Miss Thorne." "Mrs. Vance," Martin corrected. "Miss Thorne," Douglas repeated with a flash of steel, "has no interest in Mr. Vance's generosity. In fact, she has prepared her own conditions." He slid a single sheet of vellum paper across the table. Martin scanned it. His cigar smoker bravado faltered. He read it again. This is it," he stammered. "A list of furniture, is that it? A desk and 12 paintings. She wants no alimony, no stake in the company, no cash settlement." "Miss Thorne is not in need of a settlement, Mr. Klein. She simply wants her personal property, which, incidentally, was loaned to the marital dwelling. The paintings are from her private collection. The desk belonged to her great-grandmother." Martin, for the first time in his career, was speechless. He had come in expecting to battle over hedge funds, offshore accounts, and the Hamptons property. Instead, he was negotiating for an antique piece of furniture. "But the house," Martin rallied. "Harrison built it, but she lived there. Community property, we could argue." "You could?" Douglas interjected. "And you would lose. The asset is owned by Vance Point Holdings, LLC, a Delaware corporation, of which Mr. Vance is the sole managing partner. It was never commingled. My client has no interest in it. She finds the property, and I quote, ostentatiously cold." Martin was defeated. It was the easiest multi-million-dollar divorce of his life, and it felt like a total loss. He had no leverage. He couldn't even threaten them. "Fine," Martin snapped. "We'll sign. The story hit the New York Post Society section 48 hours later. Sterling's solo act, Harrison Vance and Anya Thorne. Split. Sources say the real estate mogul was incredibly generous as model Serafina Bell moves in. Harrison was annoyed they used her maiden name. The Golden Chaos and the Quiet Correction. He and Serafina were photographed a week later, kissing on a yacht in the Mediterranean. Serafina had moved into Vance Point and immediately began her reign. Her first act was to hire an interior designer. "This place is so cold," she complained, running her hand over the minimalist Italian marble. "It needs life. It needs me." Anya's museum-quality neutral tones were ripped out. Walls were painted in a glittering, textured gold. Animal print rugs were laid over the white oak floors. A 20-foot portrait of Serafina, nude and draped in Bulgari serpents, was commissioned for the main atrium. Harrison, drunk on the euphoria of his new life, approved every expense. The redecoration cost $3 million. The parties were constant. Dom Perignon flowed, not by the bottle, but by the case. Serafina's friends, a flock of influencers, models, and EAs, descended on the house every weekend, documenting every vulgar detail for their millions of followers. "See," Harrison would say to his own reflection, his pupils slightly dilated. "This is life. This is passion." Meanwhile, Anya Thorne had disappeared. Or, rather, she had returned to her world. She had settled into her family's 6-story limestone townhome on Madison Avenue, a fortress of quiet, old-world power. She wasn't grieving. She was working. Her days were spent in the climate-controlled archives of her family's private art foundation. She was planning, not revenge. Revenge was so messy. Anya was planning a correction, a market adjustment. She had lunch with her uncle, Julius Thorne, at Le Bernardin. Julius was a man who spoke in whispers, but whose words could destabilize governments. He was the patriarch, the true head of the Thorne dynasty. "Are you well, Anya?" he asked, tasting his wine. "I'm very well, Uncle Julius. This Vance fellow, he was indiscreet. He was disrespectful. To you and, by extension, to this family. He is a product of his time," Anya said. "He believes his own press, and Forbes is a poor substitute for expansion," Julius noted. "He is over-leveraged. His new project in Dubai is ambitious." "Ambitious?" "He's financed it with junk bonds and handshake deals with questionable partners," Julius said. "He needs a massive capital injection in the next 6 months, or the entire house of cards collapses." Anya was silent, drinking her water. "He is exposed," Julius continued. "He thinks that house in the Hamptons is his fortress. He fails to realize it is his primary liability. The upkeep alone is astronomical, and his new companion has notoriously expensive tastes." "Yes, she does," Anya nodded. "A man who builds his house on sand," Julius mused. "Sooner or later, the tide comes in. Tell me, Anya, that house, did you ever like it?" Anya thought for a moment. "I liked the view. The land is, significant. The house itself is an insult to architecture." Julius Thorne nodded slowly, a small, cold smile creeping onto his lips. "Significant land? Yes, it is." He signaled for the check. "I'm glad you're back, Anya. It's time to get back to the family business." The sinking ship. The next 6 months were a blur of golden, glorious, and expensive chaos for Harrison Vance. Life with Serafina was an endless spectacle. It was Milan Fashion Weeks, Monaco Formula One, and impromptu trips to Tokyo to buy rare Rolex watches. Harrison was funding a lifestyle not just for one person, but for Serafina's entire 15-person entourage. "You have to spend money to make money, darling," she'd yell over the music in a club, ordering another $25,000 bottle of Ace of Spades champagne to spray over the crowd. Harrison, caught up in the current of her youth and fame, only laughed and signed the tab. But back in New York, the numbers weren't adding up. The Vance Tower in Dubai, his legacy project, was in trouble. He was at his desk in his sleek Fifth Avenue office, a glass box overlooking Central Park. His assistant, Miguel, a nervous young man who lived in terror of him, was reading the latest report. "Sir, the Al-Jamil family have pulled their second-round financing," Miguel stammered, afraid to make eye contact. "Pulled it? Pulled it. They promised me that 200 million, Harrison roared, slamming his fist on the desk. "I had dinner with the sheikh. They said they were reassessing their international real estate exposure." "Sir, their bank is the Thorne Trust." Harrison froze. "Thorne? What the hell does Anya's dusty old family have to do with my Dubai deal?" "Not exactly. But the Thorne Trust holds the mortgage on the Al-Jamil family's London properties. The Thornes are rumored to have advised them to pull out of high-risk developments." "High risk? I'm high risk. I'm Harrison Vance. I'm the safest bet in the world." Harrison vibrated with rage. Sir, without that $200 million, we can't make the next construction payment. The entire project will stop. The penalty clauses are staggering. Get me a loan, Harrison shrieked. Call Santander. Call Chase. Use Vance Point as collateral. It's worth $80 million easy. I'll get $40 million by tomorrow. Miguel looked even sicker. Sir, I tried. Both banks have refused. Refused? Refused? My credit is impeccable. They said the asset is too specialized. A one-owner trophy home. They said its valuation is subjective. And, sir, our company's liquid asset-to-debt ratio is too high. Too high. It's high because I'm building things you can't build without debt. But he knew what it meant. The banks were scared. That dusty old name, Thorne, whispered in the right boardroom, carried more weight than all his Forbes covers combined. The Thornes didn't have to do anything. They just had to suggest. They were the house, and he was just a player on a bad run. That night, he flew back to the Hamptons in his helicopter with his stomach churning. He was short $200 million. He was burning his personal cash at the rate of $1 million a week just to keep Serafina happy. He landed on his mansion's helipad to find a full-scale rave in progress. A famous DJ. Jay was set up by the pool. There were at least 300 people on his lawn. He stormed into the house, finding Serafina dancing on a custom marble table, a tequila bottle in her hand. Serafina, what the hell is this? He yelled, grabbing her arm. It's a party, honey. Loosen up, she shrieked, clearly drunk. I'm celebrating my new Vogue cover. I don't care about your damn cover. We have to stop this. The spending, all these parasites. He gestured at her friends. Serafina's face flipped from merriment to cold, reptilian fury in an instant. She jumped off the table. Parasites. These are my friends. This is my career. This is the life you promised me. Don't you dare come in here and try to be boring. Don't be like her, the boring, frigid ex-wife Anya. Is that what you want? To go back to her? Because I can be on a jet to Paris in an hour. Harrison, there are a dozen billionaires who would beg to pay for my parties. The threat was clear. The passion and fire he had left his wife for was entirely conditional. It was a transaction. He was paying for the experience of being with Serafina Bell. And he had just defaulted on a payment. No, darling, of course not, he stammered, his anger deflating into panic. He couldn't lose her. Not now. Losing her would be a public admission that he had failed. It would be the ultimate humiliation. I'm just stressed. The Dubai project. Ugh, business, she scoffed, rolling her eyes. Don't be so needy, Harrison. Go get a drink. She turned her back and cranked the music louder. Harrison stood there, invisible in his own home, surrounded by strangers, the music throbbing like a migraine. He was hemorrhaging money. The $80 million mansion suddenly felt like a tomb. He had to get liquid. He had to get it now. He barked into his phone, walking to a quiet corner of the estate. Put the house on the market. Tomorrow. Sir, Vance Point? Yes. Are you deaf? But be discreet. I don't want a for sale sign. I want an off-market listing. Target Russian oligarchs. Chinese billionaires. Someone who wants a trophy and pays cash. Price. $85 million. Not a cent less. He hung up. He looked at the house, lit up against the night sky, throbbing with music he hated. It was his greatest triumph, and now he had to sell it to pay for the supermodel who was ignoring him. The irony was so bitter, he could barely breathe. Interactive question. Serafina's passion is entirely transactional. Was Harrison right to give her an ultimatum, or should he have taken the loss and moved on? The art of the deal. Meanwhile, Anya Thorne was experiencing a renaissance. She had done something no Thorne had done in 50 years. She had opened a business with a public presence. It was a small, 3-story gallery in the Soho district called Thorne Contemporary. It was an instant, astonishing success. Not because it was flashy, but because it was the opposite. The opening night featured no celebrities, no DJ Tiesto, and no paparazzi. It featured 4 unknown painters, a string quartet playing Shostakovich, and Anya herself in a simple black dress, passionately explaining the brushwork of a young artist from Brooklyn. The New York Times art critic, a notoriously difficult man named Julian Albright, wrote a double-page spread. For years, he wrote, art has become a commodity, a toy for the new rich investor. With Thorne contemporary, Anya Thorne has done the impossible. She has made art again. She is, without question, the most important new voice in the art world. She has the one thing speculators lack: taste. Collectors, museums, and old money patrons flocked to her. She was the new arbiter of class. By leaving Harrison, she hadn't become invisible. She had become essential. She was photographed at museum galas, not as a +1, but as the guest of honor. Harrison saw the articles, saw the photos of Anya, looking serene, intelligent, and powerful. Surrounded by people who wouldn't return his calls, he would thumb through them with white knuckles. Then he'd switch to Serafina's Instagram, which was full of bikini selfies and videos of her drunk at 3 in the morning. He had traded a Rolex for a Swatch, and the world knew it. His professional life was crumbling just as fast. The sale of Vance Point was a disaster. The discreet off-market offering had, of course, been leaked to the Wall Street Journal. Sterling's point of no return. Mogul's $85 million palace for sale as Dubai project stalls. The story overshadowed his company. Suddenly, contractors demanded payment up front. Lenders called in minor debts. The sharks were circling, and the house wasn't selling. "What do you mean there are no offers?" Harrison roared at the high-end broker. "It's the most famous house in the Hamptons." "Famous, yes," the sleek broker named Samantha said coolly. "But it's a very specific taste, Harrison. The gold leaf walls, the disco sound system, it's not what the current market wants. The current market wants, well, frankly, they want what Anya Thorne has. Quiet charm, timeless, old world. It's a monument," he insisted. "Monuments are for history books. People want homes." He was trapped. He couldn't lower the price. It would be an admission of desperation. He couldn't not sell because the Dubai penalties were stacking up, and Serafina had just discovered a passion for haute couture gowns, which she wore once and then discarded. He was sitting in his office, his head in his hands, when Miguel knocked. "Sir, there is an offer. For the house." Harrison leaped up. "Who? How much is it? The Russian?" "No, sir. It's a limited partnership. A domestic corporation based in Delaware. It's called Arrowhead Holdings." "Arrowhead? Never heard of them. What's the offer?" They're offering the full asking price, $85 million. Harrison stared. "The full asking price in this market?" "Yes, sir." "And?" Miguel paused, checking the paper. "All cash. They waive all inspections. And they want to close in 10 days. 10. It was a miracle. A lifeline. He was saved. "Take it!" Harrison screamed. "Take it! I don't care if it's the cartel. Draft the papers. Do it, now!" Miguel scrambled out. Harrison poured himself a massive glass of 25-year-old Macallan. He was back. He was Harrison Vance. He'd done it again. He'd stared into the abyss, and he hadn't blinked. He grabbed his phone to call Serafina, to tell her that they were celebrating. She didn't answer. Her Instagram story showed her in Paris, trying on a gown at the Chanel atelier. "Oops," the caption read. A photo of a $100,000 dress followed. He didn't even care. He was $80 million richer. He could afford the dress. He could fund Dubai. He was back. The final correction. The closing was set for the following Friday. Harrison, in his arrogance, planned one last screw-you party at the mansion the night before. He would empty the wine cellars, trash the place, and hand the keys to the anonymous buyers in the morning. Anya learned the news from her uncle. "Arrowhead Holdings has an accepted offer," Julius said over the phone. He was at his desk looking at a painting of a naval battle. "So it's done?" Anya asked. She was at her own gallery preparing for a new show. "Almost. The rat has taken the bait," Julius said. "He's planning a party, a final desecration. I think it's time to finalize the transaction. Publicly." "What do you mean?" "The house is yours, my dear. Or rather, it's the foundation's. I thought you'd like to be there for the final walkthrough. After all, you have to accept the keys." A slow smile spread across Anya's face. "Uncle Julius, you are a menace." "I am a thorn, Anya, like you. We protect our own, and we enforce order. I'll send a car for you on Friday, 10 a.m. Dress appropriately." The party was apocalyptic. Harrison, euphoric with the impending $85 million, had decided to burn the house down. Metaphorically. He flew in Tiesto to DJ. He hired the entire staff of Nobu to cater. He told Serafina to invite everyone. And she did. By 3 in the morning, the house was a wreck. A rented Lamborghini was in the infinity pool. The new animal print rugs were stained with wine and ash. Someone had inexplicably spray-painted Serafina's palace on the white marble wall of the atrium. Harrison didn't care. He was drunk, victorious, and surrounded by beautiful, shallow people. He felt like a Roman emperor. "To May," he toasted, standing on the bar, champagne pouring down his shirt. "To Harrison F. Ray Vance! To Harrison!" they all shouted, none of them knowing or caring that he was a hair's breadth from total bankruptcy. When the sun came up, the scene was one of total devastation. Staff, paid triple, were trying to erase the evidence. Harrison was passed out in a cabana. Serafina was long gone, with a musician, to an after-party. At 9 a.m., Miguel, eyes twitching, had to physically shake his boss awake. Sir, the buyers. They're here. The final walkthrough is at 10 a.m. sharp. What?" Harrison sat up, his head pounding. They're here. Why so early?" "It is 10 a.m. At 10 a.m., sir, as scheduled." Fine. Harrison splashed water on his face, pulled on sunglasses, and swallowed 4 aspirin. He was still wearing his tuxedo from the night before. "Let's get this over with. Give me the keys. I'll meet them. Grab the check and let's go." He staggered toward the grand entrance, which was littered with confetti and broken glass. He saw a car approaching, but it wasn't the Maybach or Rolls-Royce he expected from a billionaire buyer. It was a 1960s Bentley S2 Continental, a quiet, elegant, old-money car, painted a discreet dark green. It pulled up with a crunch. A chauffeur in a simple black suit got out and opened the back door. Out stepped Mr. Douglas, his elderly lawyer, forever wearing that air of reproach. "Douglas!" Harrison barked, confused. "What the hell are you doing here?" "Mr. Vance," Douglas said with a sniff of disdain, looking at the debauchery. "I am here on behalf of the buyers." "The buyers? You? Who is it? Who is Arrowhead Holdings?" A second person emerged from the car. It was Anya. She wore a cream-colored Loro Piana cashmere coat and simple trousers. Her hair was pulled back. She looked calm, rested, and completely in control. She looked at the house, the graffiti, her ex-husband's hungover state, and her expression didn't flicker. "Anya," Harrison whispered. The blood ran cold in his veins. The aspirin, the champagne, the victory, it all turned sour in his gut. "Harrison," she said evenly, "you have been busy. You bought my house," he stammered, a laugh bordering on a sob escaping his lips. "You bought this, too? To get back at me? You spent $85 million just to spite me?" He clutched, trying to find a narrative where he was still the main character. Don't be ridiculous, Harrison, Anya said, as if speaking to a child. I didn't buy your house. I don't have 85 million cash. That's your game. Or, then who? Arrowhead Holdings, she said. It is a subsidiary of the Thorne Family Foundation. The foundation did buy your house. Or rather, as I told my uncle, they bought the land, the view. Harrison's mind scrambled to process it. The foundation? A charity? What does a charity want with a mansion? Oh, they don't, Anya said. She walked past him toward the front door, which was slightly hanging off a hinge. They have no use for the house at all. I don't understand, Harrison said, following her, panic rising in his throat. The foundation, Anya explained, stopping in the atrium and looking at the grotesque spray-painted graffiti, is in the process of building the new Thorne wing for the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, a project that was, unfortunately, stalled by an investor who reneged on his promise. She looked at him. He was that investor. He had promised $50 million to the museum to get his name on a wall, and had quietly defaulted 3 months ago. The foundation, she continued, has decided to liquidate some of its less essential real estate holdings to fund the wing themselves. For instance, this incredibly valuable plot of land in the Hamptons. Liquidate? You just bought it. Yes, an acquisition and a liquidation, Anya said. We have already resold it. Harrison's world tilted. Resold it. To who? For how much? To a developer. He had been trying to acquire this land for a decade to build his new golf course. He paid $95 million. The $10 million profit will be a beautiful donation to the foundation. $95 million. Harrison's knees buckled. He had been so desperate he had sold to the first offer, not realizing he had left $10 million on the table. The house? Oh, the developer. He doesn't like the house either, Anya said. He's having it torn down. The demolition crew arrives at noon. Harrison physically recoiled. Torn down? My house, my masterpiece. It's not a masterpiece, Harrison. It's a poorly built disco with a plumbing problem. The demolition, she added, consulting her watch, is in 1 hour. This was the final blow. It wasn't just a sale. It wasn't revenge. It was erasure. He wasn't even a footnote. He was a mistake being bulldozed. But why? He whispered, sinking onto a ruined velvet ottoman. Why? You, Anya. Why are you doing this to me? Anya turned to him, and the ice in her demeanor softened slightly, turning to cold, clear water. Doing this to you, Harrison? You seem to be under the impression this was about you. It wasn't. You defaulted on the Al Jamil loan. My uncle's bank held the note. You defaulted on your museum promise. My family presides over the museum. You weren't a rival, Harrison. You were a liability. We were simply enforcing order. This was just business. Business? He repeated, stunned. Yes, you taught me that. You said your money was real and my family was dusty. You just forgot one thing. Dust settles, but it never goes away. The Thorne dynasty was here 100 years before you, and it will be here 100 years after you're gone. Mr. Douglas stepped forward. Mr. Vance, the funds have been wired to your account, minus the $50 million promise you reneged on to the museum, for which the foundation graciously covered your debt. And of course, closing costs, and the $50,000 fee for cleaning up this. Harrison looked at his phone. A bank transfer alert. The $85 million had become $34.9 million. Enough to stop the immediate bleeding of the Dubai project, but nowhere near enough to save it. It was a fatal wound. You bitch! He spat the word out with no force whatsoever. Anya didn't even flinch. Goodbye, Harrison. I hope you find the fire you were looking for. She turned and walked out the door, gracefully stepping over a broken baccarat vase. Harrison Vance sat alone amid the ruins of his $84 million monument, the sound of the ocean drowned out by the nearby roar of the excavators. He didn't move. He just stared at the wall, where Serafina's palace was already beginning to peel away. He collapsed. Not a physical faint, but a complete spiritual surrender, his eyes hollow. He simply gave up. Epilogue. Building on rock. The demolition of Vance Point was efficient and brutal. By 4 p.m., it was rubble. By the end of the week, the land was flat, as if the house had never existed. The Post ran a single sarcastic headline. Sterling's house flip. A bust. Thorne family tears down tacky mansion. The public humiliation was total. Harrison Vance was radioactive. The $35 million he had gained vaporized within 2 weeks, devoured by the Dubai penalties and the avalanche of creditors who, seeing the news, demanded their money immediately. He tried calling Serafina. She was in Milan, and his phone went straight to voicemail. He texted her, "I'm in trouble, darling. I need you." She replied 5 hours later, "Richard, I'm sorry. I can't be with a man who isn't successful. It's bad for my brand. My publicist will release a statement. Wishing you the best." He was in his rented Salamanca penthouse. The lease was up in 30 days when he saw her Instagram post. She was on a yacht on Lake Como with the Sheikh Al Jamil. "New Horizons," the caption read. Harrison threw his phone against the wall. It shattered. A week later, Vance Properties filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The Dubai tower was seized by his partners. His Madrid office, his fleet of cars, his Tom Ford suits, all were seized by the bank. He was, for the first time since he was 20, completely broke. He was worse than broke. He was in debt, and his name was toxic. Anya Thorne read the news on Bloomberg while sitting at her office at the Thorne Gallery in Soho. She was reviewing the catalog for her next exhibition. "New perspectives in postmodern sculpture," her assistant called. "Miss Thorne, a Mr. Harrison Vance is here to see you." Anya looked up, surprised. "Here?" "Yes, he doesn't have an appointment. He looks rough." Anya considered it for a moment. "Fine. Send him in, and bring 2 coffees." Harrison walked in. He was a different man. His suit was wrinkled, his face gaunt, and the arrogant fire in his eyes was gone. He was just a tired, defeated man. "Harrison, this is a surprise," she said, her voice dry. She gestured to a chair. He sat down. I don't know why I'm here," he said, looking at his hands. "I guess I wanted to see, to ask, to beg for what? Money. Pity. I want to know. Was it all a lie?" he whispered. "Our 10 years. Did you ever love me? Or was I just an amusement?" Anya looked at him, and the ice in her demeanor softened slightly, turning to cold, clear water. "I did love you, Harrison. Once. A long time ago. I loved your drive, your energy. I loved that you weren't like the boys I grew up with. You built things. I admired that. Then why? Because you stopped loving me," she said firmly. "You stopped seeing me. You saw the thorns. You saw a trophy. And when that wasn't shiny enough, you traded it for another. You didn't just leave me, Harrison. You fired me. You fired my family, my life, my value. You stood in the house my family's name helped you build, and you told me I was nothing without you." She leaned forward. "This, all of this," she pointed to the bankruptcy news on her screen. "This wasn't my uncle. This wasn't my family. This was you. My family, merely." She trailed off. "They removed the safety net you didn't even know you had. You built your empire on a foundation of Thorne credit, Thorne connections, and Thorne tolerance. When you betrayed me, you didn't just lose a wife. You lost your entire infrastructure." Harrison just stared, the devastating truth finally sinking in. He hadn't been a self-made man. He had been a sponsored man. "What do I do now?" A broken man asked. I don't know, Harrison, Anya said. She pushed one of the coffees toward him. You're a builder. You said so yourself. So build. Start again. This time, build it on rock, not sand. He looked at the coffee. He looked at her. She was a queen in her own right, secure, powerful, and just. He stood up, not touching the drink. Goodbye, Anya, he said. Goodbye, Harrison. He walked out of the gallery. He passed the invaluable art and stepped onto the street. He was just a man in a wrinkled suit. He had no car, no home, and no one. He started walking aimlessly. A year later, the landscape of the Hamptons had changed. Where Vance Point once stood, there was now a sprawling, beautiful single-story public art pavilion. It was called the Thorne Arts Pavilion. It was a masterpiece of glass, stone, and light, designed by a Pritzker Prize-winning architect. It housed a rotating collection of sculptures and offered free art classes to the community. Its gardens, leading down to the ocean, were open to the public. Anya Thorne was at the opening ceremony. She wasn't in the spotlight. She was in the crowd, watching a group of local children learn to paint the ocean. Her uncle Julius was by her side. It's beautiful, Anya, he said. A far better use of the view. It is, she nodded. It feels right. The New York Times ran a glowing feature on it. A monument to generosity. Like Anya Thorne, she turned a symbol of 21st century excess into a beacon of public culture. She had taken Harrison's monument to ego and transformed it into a legacy of culture. In Milan, Serafina Bell was photographed arguing with Sheikh Al-Jamil, who had just traded her for an even younger, 19-year-old Russian influencer. Her Vogue covers had dried up. She was last seen hosting a Red Bull promotion on an Ibiza beach. Her fire had extinguished. And Harrison Vance, he was in Queens, New York. He worked as a junior project manager for a small commercial construction company. He lived in a one-bedroom rental apartment. He drove a Ford Focus. He was, in fact, building. He was starting over. He carried a small laminated clipping in his wallet. It wasn't of his old Forbes covers. It was the article about Anya's new pavilion. He was on a construction site in a hard hat, yelling at a contractor about rebar, when his phone rang. It was an unknown number from New York. He answered, Vance. Harrison, I'm Anya. He froze. Anya? Wow, hello. I heard you were in Queens. That you were building again. Yeah, small stuff. Office parks, but it's honest work, he said. I know, she said. My foundation. We're funding a new low-income housing project in Queens. We need a senior manager, someone who knows how to build, but who also knows what it's like to lose everything. Someone who will build it right. Harrison was silent. He couldn't speak. It's a job, Harrison, she said, her voice not cold, not warm, but clear. If you want it, it's a chance to build something that lasts. He looked at the dusty blueprint in his hand, then to the sky. He had lost his mansion. He had lost his wife. He had lost his empire. But among the ruins, he had found a single, small, buried seed. Yes, he said, his voice husky. Anya? Yes, I would like that. She had bought his mansion. She had torn it down. And in doing so, she had given him the one thing his millions could never buy. A chance at redemption, call to action, and interaction, huh? What an unexpected turn. The truth comes out in a brutal way. What did you think of Anya's final move? Was it cold revenge, or simply the inevitable consequences of Harrison's actions? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of high-stakes drama, justice, and life lessons, be sure to hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to see that dynasties always win. Subscribe to our channel for new Power Play stories every week.